Pat Cain is our first featured artist in our series. Pat is a former high school art teacher from Michigan who retired here in Arizona with her husband Richard. She has a bachelor's in arts education and a master's in studio art. We've been showing Pat's work for over 15 years, and her and her husband have welcomed us into their family. We truly appreciate having them here at Art One. Some of her work can be found at the London Center on 44th Street in Camelback, as well as all throughout the country at Simon Medical Imaging Centers. Pat brings us work all the time and is constantly producing new inventory, so please follow her on our website at art1galleryinc.com.
So anyway, this morning we are interviewing one of my favorites, Pat Cain. And so first question is, how's my favorite Sunday painter doing?
Let me see. I'm painting like they're selling.
The story is that she came in, and I don't remember what day it was, but you had come in and we were just talking, and I just said, most of the painters in here, we want them to paint all the time. And I simply said, we kind of want to stay away from Sunday painters. And I guess poor Pat took it the wrong way, and I went, oh no. So anyway, that's our inside joke, and I've been paying for it ever since.
I have to say, being in your gallery is probably one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had in my life, Craig. Seriously. And I often kid you about being nervous when I came in. You were looking at my work, and I was very, very concerned. I didn't know if you would like it or not. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate is the fact that, well, first of all, the atmosphere in the gallery is it's so warm and it's so welcoming, and you've always been that way.
Nice.
And the young people that you have working there now and in the past that I've gotten to know are just fantastic. One of the things that I really love the most too is that you let me do my thing. I can experiment. I can try this. I can try that. And sometimes I'll come in and I'll say, "Hey, Craig, look, I tried this. I came up with this." And you'll get as excited about it as I am. And I love that. I think that's just.
But sometimes you come and go, I'm not sure if you're going to like this one. I always love them.
Well, that's nice to hear. As I said, especially since I was a little afraid of you initially, and now it's hard to imagine that I ever felt that way.
Sorry. How long were you here before we met you, though?
Oh, very short time. I think we moved here in 2003, and I think we came to one of the art walks. We moved here in August of all times, but I think that fall we came to an art walk, and we looked at all the galleries because I had been in a couple galleries in Michigan, and I was kind of looking for a place. And we came into your gallery, and at that time you had 3 storefronts, and we wandered through, and we just looked and looked, and I felt so comfortable there. There was just something about the whole vibe. And I think that you've retained that over the years so much so that it's just, it's just been, it just felt good. And so that's when I contacted you, and you said, well, let me see some of your work and we'll go from there. And the rest is history. So it's been a long time.
So since you've moved here, has your subject matter or the way you paint changed since you moved from Michigan?
I think the way I paint has changed very much, but I'm not sure it had a lot to do with the move. It might have had something to do with the light here. Okay. I think I might have used more vibrant color, perhaps. I know I certainly, and you wouldn't know it to look at me today wearing black, but I found that I was wearing colors that I wouldn't have worn in Michigan, brighter colors. So I think if it's changed at all, it might have been in that way, but very subtly. I think the changes have been more due to my just growing. I think hopefully as an artist, evolving, changing, continuing to try to, do better and more exciting things as I go. So I would say that the change has probably been more due to just growing.
What did you do before you retired?
I was an art teacher. I was a high school art teacher for the last 15 years. Before that, I taught elementary, and for a few years, I taught middle school. So I taught art for 30 years in Michigan. And I worked on my master's while I was teaching. And I always knew that when I retired, I was going to be painting. And I painted, a little bit all along, but having a family and teaching full time, precluded painting very much. So I painted as much as I could, and I knew I was going to paint when I retired.
Huh. So, as a former teacher, what would you give advice to students? Because you've met a lot of the students, not all, but you've met some of the students. What would you give them for advice?
I think I would tell them, the same kinds of things that I told my own students. I would tell them to be open to new ideas, to really be just try things, take risks, do things, experiment, have fun. I mean, to me, that's the biggest part. I mean, the art room was a place where students could come, be themselves, and just have a good time. And the time would fly. I can't tell you; those students would say how fast it would go. But anyway, as far as advice, I tell them be honest. Be true to yourself. Do what you love. Don't try to copy somebody else and what they do. And when you do that, there sometimes can be a place for that kind of thing, an exercise or whatever. But until you're really being honest and really expressing yourself, you're not going to be happy as a painter, as an artist. You have to be able to do that, and just believe in yourself, believe in your goals, and I guess that's the best advice I could give students. I love the fact that you give so much back to the local community art programs. So many times, I was fortunate to have taught in a district in Michigan and it wasn't a wealthy district, but there was always money for the arts. And I think it's so important. It's such an important part of what children need to learn when they're growing up. I think it's such an important quality of life issue to have the arts in your life. And the fact that you have always, that's how you began. You've always supported students, art programs, the Autistic Academy now, and the school programs that might be underserved as far as support for those art programs. I love that. I, I, I can't think of a better place to be than Art One.
Oh, thanks. One of the other things too that I know we get a lot of questions on here because you use handmade paper in some of your work. What other mediums do you like to work with in your pieces, in your paintings?
I occasionally will use a water soluble oil, um, but when I do that, it has to be on top of the acrylic. You can't go over it then with acrylic. So it has to be sort of a final kind of thing. And I don't always work that way. So I don't use the water soluble oil as much. I mainly do use acrylic, but I love texture. I
Yeah.
love surprises I get when I stumble over some bumpy texture with a color, you know. So I like to use molding paste. I use a light molding paste on canvas, and I like using different tools just because I can get different effects, like little squeegees, scrapers, brayers, printmaking brayers, going through wet paint. Again, it's a relinquishing of total control, which I'm finding I'm doing more and more, and that may say something about where I am in my life and what I figured out about the world.
Yeah.
But I don't want to try to control everything with my brush like I did many years ago. And so I like to surprise myself. I might even go so far as to take a paper palette and put some paint on it and literally stamp it onto the painting,
Oh,
just
cool.
because it's a way of getting something that I don't control.
Also, how and where do you find inspiration for your artwork? Because it's really abstract. So I'm kind of curious, is like visually, do you see things in the desert? Do you see things driving? Do you just kind of like come up with things in your head?
I do see things in nature. I see things that, and I think a lot of my titles are nature oriented.
Yeah.
even though it's not a landscape, they're not literal, they're more my impressions of things. And I think a lot of my inspiration comes from within my life experiences, just living day to day in this world,
Yeah.
certainly now, I mean, it always seems to impact how I work. And I think over the years, my work has gone from being more structured, and it's gotten looser, it's gotten freer, and that's okay. That feels good to me to do that. But I also think maybe I'm living in a time, either in my own age, my own personal age, or in a time in our world where my response to things is different than it used to be. It's less structured, I guess. When I paint, I start and I don't know where I'm going. That's what I love about it. I just begin.
Do you start a painting and finish it, or do you like start it and then kind of paint for a while, walk away, and go back and look at it?
I have to do it in chunks. I start a painting, and as I said, I don't know. It's sort of the excitement of the journey. It's the fun of beginning. Sometimes I say I start with chaos. And then I try to bring a bit of order to it, but not too much. And again, that's seriousness, lack of seriousness. I don't know, but I really have fun, and I really love the surprises that might occur along the way. Happy accidents, you call them, that I like and that I love and I can keep. But yes, I suppose I am less serious. I think I realize that it's not a matter of life and death painting, but it's a quality of life. And I think obviously art has a place in everybody's life. I would have to say, as opposed to the way I was painting at one point which I described as more structured, I think my painting is very abstract expressionist. It's very put it on, and leave it. And there's something, the expressionism comes in just that feeling of doing mark making and, maybe splashing the paint on, flinging it on, rolling over it. It's more abstract expressionism, really, truly, than probably just non-objective painting.
So, what would happen if suddenly all the art supplies disappeared? What would you do?
I would come to Craig's warehouse and see what I could find there, because I know you would always have art supplies there.
You have art supplies there. Now, I have to ask you a little bit about your husband, because Richard, to me, everybody, he's a nut, a sweetheart, and he's just the other half of Pat.
He's he is he's amazing. He is so supportive. There have been times that I'll say, well, I'm going to drop a painting off at the gallery or something to that effect, and he'll say, well, I'll come with you. I think he really enjoys coming in and seeing all of you as much as I do or more.
Yeah.
And he always wants to come along, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, truly, he is there every step of the way. When I used to do Hidden in the Hills through the Sonoran Arts League, we did that for about 10 years. He was one of the few husbands that was there with me all 6 days from the morning until we left in the afternoon. And he did everything he could do to help out at the host studio, to make the coffee in the morning. And, I mean, he was just always there. He's amazing that way. He's wonderful. I'm so fortunate, really.
Well, we lost your head. We can't see it there.
I know. That's intentional that you can't see me.
How are you?
How you doing?
Good. We've been talking all about you.
Oh, yeah? I
Yeah.
figured that. Yeah.
All good things.
Sure.
All good things.
Yeah.
We know you're right there with her, and you're always helping her, and we appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate everything you guys do as well.
We love you guys a ton, that's for sure.
Yeah, we love you
We
too.
love you.
But anyway, we'll let you guys get back to your.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank
that was
you.
fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was afraid that one of them was going to ask to do it, and so I was kind of glad to do the interview. So hopefully you're not embarrassed by it.
Never.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, guys. I don't know how to turn this off, so I'll let Max do
All
it.
right, guys.
I don't either. I'm gonna let Pat get in here.
Thank you again.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Tell the family hi for us.